Carl Hensley's truck rumbled down the familiar Missouri backroad, early morning sun cutting through the Ozark pines. March 12, 1959. He'd driven this route dozens of times. Knew every turn, every landmark, every pothole. He was looking for Larkspur Hollow, the small town where he always stayed when working this territory. Mrs. Cooper's boarding house. Hot coffee. Maybe that apple pie she'd promised him. But the turnoff wasn't there. Carl slowed down, checked his odometer. He should be seeing the church steeple by now. The gas station. Something. Nothing. Just wilderness. He kept driving. 5 miles past where the town should be. Turned around. Drove back slowly, eyes scanning the tree line. Still nothing. Carl parked his truck and walked into the woods, heart pounding, looking for a building, a road, a fence post. Anything. He found nothing. 714 people. Gone. Not dead. Not evacuated. Just gone. No buildings. No roads. No graves. No sign a town had ever existed. How does an entire American town vanish overnight without leaving a single trace? If you think you know what happened to small-town America, this story will shake everything you believe. Hit subscribe, because what happened to Larkspur Hollow has never been explained. Before it vanished, Larkspur Hollow was unremarkably, beautifully ordinary. Nestled in the heart of the Missouri Ozarks, population 714. Founded in 1887 by German immigrant families seeking fertile land and a fresh start. It was a kind of town that appears on no tourist maps. The kind where everyone knows your name, your family, and probably your business too. What made up Larkspur Hollow? Simple things. American things. A single gas station run by the Pritchard family. 2 pumps. A bell that rang when you drove over the hose. The white-steepled Baptist church where Sunday services were never, ever missed. A general store that smelled like coffee and sawdust, where old men gathered on the porch to argue politics and weather. The small brick schoolhouse taught grades 1 through 8. If you want a high school, you travel to Crosswell, 15 miles away. 2 dozen homes scattered along unpaved roads. 1 doctor, 1 postmaster, 1 sheriff. The people? Farming families mostly. Corn, tobacco, livestock. Hard work from sunrise to sunset. Friday night church socials. Kids playing in the creek behind the schoolhouse. Mothers canning vegetables. Fathers mending fences. Nothing remarkable about Larkspur Hollow. No famous residents. No historical significance. Never made the newspapers. Just simple, quiet American life unfolding the way it had for 70 years. Carl Hensley knew it well. As a traveling salesman covering rural Missouri, selling farming equipment and household goods, he'd stayed at Mrs. Adelaide Cooper's boarding house more times than he could count. He knew most folks by name. Sheriff Barnes, who'd never arrested anyone more dangerous than a drunk farmhand. Doc Henley, who delivered half the babies in town. The Morrison kids, always playing kick-the-can in the street. Carl had last visited February 28, 1959. Everything was normal, ordinary, unremarkable. Mrs. Cooper had promised him her famous apple pie when he returned. He'd been looking forward to it for 2 weeks. That pie never got baked. March 12, 1959, started like any other day on Carl Hensley's route. He was tired from the night drive, but the thought of Mrs. Cooper's boarding house kept him going. Hot coffee, a comfortable bed, familiar faces, that apple pie. The first sign something was wrong came at mile marker 47. The turnoff to Larkspur Hollow should be right there, a worn dirt road marked by a split-rail fence and an old oak tree with a distinctive lightning scar. Carl had taken that turn 30 times, could do it with his eyes closed, but the turn wasn't there. He slowed down, checked his odometer, squinted at his hand-drawn route map. This was the right place. Had to be. Nothing but unbroken tree line. Maybe he'd missed it. Easy to do when you're tired. Carl drove 5 miles past where the town should be, turned around, and crept back at 15 miles per hour, eyes locked on the roadside. Still nothing. His hands started shaking on the steering wheel. He parked where the town entrance should be and got out. The morning air was cool, pine-scented, peaceful, birds singing, wind rustling through branches. Carl walked into the woods. Not far, Larkspur Hollow's general store sat just 50 yards from the main road. You could always see it from here. But there was no cleared land, no paths worn smooth by feet and wagon wheels, just Ozark wilderness, trees that looked like they'd been growing undisturbed for decades, thick underbrush, fallen logs covered in moss, no buildings, no foundations, no evidence of human habitation. Carl stood in the forest, turning in slow circles. The church steeple should be visible above the trees. The gas station bell should be ringing as someone filled up. The school bell should be calling children to class. Silence. Just wind through pine trees and his own ragged breathing. "I was just here 2 weeks ago," he whispered to no one. He drove straight to Crosswell, 15 miles away, and burst into Sheriff Morrison's office. "Larkspur Hollow is gone." Sheriff Morrison looked up from his paperwork, confused. "What do you mean, gone?" "I mean it's not there. The whole town, buildings, people, roads, just vanished." Morrison studied Carl's face, searching for signs of drunkenness, confusion, maybe a practical joke. But Carl's hands were trembling. His eyes were wild. This wasn't a joke. Have you ever returned to a place you knew well and found it completely changed? Comment below, because what Carl discovered was beyond anything you could imagine. Sheriff Morrison didn't believe Carl at first. Thought maybe he'd gotten lost in the winding Ozark backroads. Maybe he had too much to drink the night before. But Carl was insistent, precise, desperate. He produced receipts from Larkspur Hollow's general store dated 2 weeks earlier. Showed his route map with the town clearly marked. Named people: Mrs. Adelaide Cooper, Sheriff Barnes, Doc Henley, the Pritchard family. Morrison made some calls. Tried to reach Larkspur Hollow's sheriff office. No answer. He checked with the county clerk. They had records of Larkspur Hollow, property deeds, tax assessments, birth certificates. But no one had heard from the town in weeks, months. The chilling realization: no one had noticed. Larkspur Hollow was isolated, didn't have telephone service in most homes. Mail came once a week, and when it stopped, no one questioned it. The town was so quiet, so forgotten, that its silence went unnoticed. State officials got involved quickly. Missouri State Police, Department of the Interior, even FBI agents. This was 1959. Cold War paranoia ran deep. Could the Soviets have done something? March 15, 1959. The first official search party deployed. Helicopters flying grid patterns over the area. Ground teams with maps, compasses, and Carl Hensley's detailed descriptions. Dozens of searchers combing the Ozark wilderness. What they found? Absolutely nothing. No buildings. Not even foundations or cellar holes. No roads. Not even gravel or packed earth where wagons had traveled for 70 years. No cemetery, though the town had buried their dead since 1887. No wells. No pipes. No fences. No property markers. No evidence of fire, explosion, flood, or demolition. No mass graves. No signs of struggle or evacuation. The searchers were baffled, then frightened. It's like it was never here. One state trooper radioed back to command. Geological surveys showed no recent ground disturbance. Soil samples came back normal. No contamination. No unusual compounds. No evidence of chemical weapons or explosives. Trees in the area appeared decades old. Growth rings undisturbed. One detail chilled everyone involved. A federal surveyor found an old land survey map from 1955. Larkspur Hollow was marked clearly. Population 689, approximate boundaries, known structures. But on the ground, standing at those exact coordinates, nothing. 714 people, an entire town, simply gone. The search commander's voice crackled over the radio, steady but stunned. There's nothing here. Repeat, nothing. No trace of habitation. It's just forest. The investigation intensified through spring 1959. Federal agents interviewed everyone who'd ever visited Larkspur Hollow. Carl Hensley, obviously. a postal worker who delivered mail there monthly, a traveling minister who'd preached at the church once, relatives of residents living in other towns. All confirmed the same thing. Larkspur Hollow existed. They'd been there. They remembered faces, names, conversations. But no physical evidence remained. Theory 1. Natural disaster. Initial investigators assumed earthquake, sinkhole, catastrophic flood, some natural event that destroyed the town. But Missouri reported no seismic activity in March 1959. No storms. No flooding. Sinkholes would leave massive craters visible from the air. There were none. The trees and vegetation showed no signs of recent upheaval. If nature had destroyed Larkspur Hollow, it would have left scars on the landscape. It didn't. Theory abandoned. Theory 2, government operation. This was the Cold War. Paranoia about secret military programs ran deep. Some speculated Larkspur Hollow had been used for classified testing. Atomic weapons, though Missouri was nowhere near testing ranges. Chemical or biological warfare experiments. Mass evacuation followed by systematic cover-up. The area was near Ozark National Forest. Plenty of isolated federal land for covert operations. But no classified documents ever surfaced. No military activity was reported in the region during that time frame. Families of residents searched for decades, filed Freedom of Information requests, hired lawyers, demanded answers. Nothing. No death certificates. No relocation records. No paper trail. If the government erased Larkspur Hollow, they did it perfectly. 714 people vanished, without leaving a single bureaucratic trace. Theory 3. Mass exodus. Perhaps the entire town left together? Some kind of collective decision to abandon everything and start fresh elsewhere? But why abandon buildings? Why leave no forwarding addresses? Why cut off all contact with relatives in other towns? Where did 714 people go without anyone noticing their arrival somewhere else? And this theory couldn't explain the physical erasure. Buildings don't pack up and leave. Roads don't disappear. Cemeteries don't relocate themselves. Theory 4. Collective hallucination. The darkest theory whispered but rarely stated officially. Larkspur Hollow never existed. Carl Hensley and others imagined it. Shared delusion. False memories somehow implanted. But historical records existed. Census data from 1950 listed 689 residents. Property tax records dated back to 1887. Birth and death certificates filed with county offices. Even a few photographs, though precious few. Rural folks didn't own cameras much back then. The paperwork was real. The memories were real. The town was real. Until it wasn't. Theory 5. The unexplainable. Some investigators reached a conclusion. They never put in official reports. Whatever happened to Larkspur Hollow defied natural explanation, defied human capability, existed outside the boundaries of known physics. Dimensional shift? Mass abduction by something beyond our understanding? A doorway opening and swallowing an entire town? These theories stayed off the record. Whisper among searchers over late-night coffee. Mentioned in private journals but never in testimony. One FBI agent wrote in his personal notes, "You can't erase a town like that. Not naturally. Not humanly. Whatever happened here, we don't have words for it." Which theory do you believe? Natural disaster, government cover-up, or something we can't explain? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because 70 years later, no one has solved this mystery. The official investigation closed in 1962. Final conclusion. Unable to determine cause or location of alleged town of Larkspur Hollow, Missouri. That word, alleged, haunted Carl Hensley for the rest of his life. The families never got closure. Parents searching for children. Children searching for parents. Spouses, siblings, friends. All gone without explanation. No bodies to bury. No graves to visit. No death certificates to file. Just absence. Some families spent decades searching. Hired private investigators who found nothing. Combed through Ozark wilderness on weekends, calling out names to silent trees. Checked hospitals, asylums, prisons across the country. Nothing. No one from Larkspur Hollow was ever found. Not one person out of 714. Carl Hensley never recovered from that morning. He stopped traveling through Missouri, changed his sales territory, became obsessed with proving he wasn't crazy, collected receipts, wrote detailed accounts, gave interviews to anyone who'd listen. He died in 1987, still insisting Larkspur Hollow was real. His final words to his daughter were, "They were there, all of them. Mrs. Cooper was going to make me apple pie, and then they weren't." The area where Larkspur Hollow supposedly stood was never redeveloped. Locals began avoiding it. The place developed a reputation. Locals called it the empty place. Hikers who venture there report strange experiences, feelings of being watched, sudden disorientation, compasses malfunctioning, an overwhelming urge to leave. Wildlife avoid the area. Birds don't nest there. Deer trails circle around it. No scientific explanation exists for any of this. Modern technology hasn't helped solve the mystery. Ground-penetrating radar shows nothing unusual. Soil analysis remains normal. Satellite imagery reveals only forest. But the coordinates on those old maps lead nowhere. A few investigators still pursue the case. Amateur historians, paranormal researchers, documentary filmmakers, conspiracy theorists, all searching for answers that refuse to come. Descendants of Larkspur Hollow residents hold annual gatherings, Larkspur Hollow Remembrance Day. They share stories passed down through families, keep memories alive, hope for answers. One descendant, holding a faded photograph of a woman in front of a general store, told me, "My grandmother was there. She was 8 years old. And now there's no proof she ever existed except my family's word." How do you grieve someone the world says never was? What makes Larkspur Hollow different from other ghost towns scattered across America? Ghost towns leave ruins. Buildings decay but remain. Foundations last centuries. You can walk through them, touch weathered wood. Imagine the lives lived there. People die or move away, but traces stay. Gravestones, property markers, roads grown over but still visible. History remembers. Larkspur Hollow left nothing. The questions that haunt. Where did the people go? 714 human beings. Infants, elderly, everyone in between, vanished simultaneously without warning or witness. No remains ever found. Not in Missouri, not anywhere in America, as if they ceased to exist. Where did the buildings go? Wood, brick, stone, metal. Foundations should last for centuries. Underground infrastructure, wells, septic systems, root cellars, should remain even after surface structures fail. Physical matter doesn't just disappear. Conservation of mass, basic physics. Yet it did. Why did anyone notice sooner? A town of 714 people, families living in other towns, business connections, regular mail service. How does a town go completely silent and no one investigates for weeks? The isolation that made Larkspur Hollow charming, that quiet, forgotten simplicity, made its disappearance possible. Too small to matter, too remote to check on, too forgotten to miss. What happened between February 28th and March 12th? Carl Hensley left on the 28th. Everything was normal, people going about their lives. Mrs. Cooper planning to bake pie. He returned on the 12th. Everything was gone. Somewhere in those 12 days, 714 people and an entire town ceased to exist. No witnesses, no sounds, no evidence, just silence falling over the Ozarks like a blanket, muffling something the world was never meant to see. The most disturbing question, could it happen again? To another small, isolated American town? Are there other Larkspur Hollows we haven't discovered yet? Towns that vanished and no one noticed because they were too small, too remote, too forgotten? How many of America's ghost towns are simply abandoned? And how many disappear like Larkspur Hollow, erased so completely we don't even know to look for them? Today, if you search for Larkspur Hollow on modern maps, you'll find nothing. The coordinates lead to dense Ozark forest, public land, unremarkable, unvisited. The town exists only in archived census records, yellowing in government basements. In Carl Hensley's testimony, transcribed and filed away, in fading photographs tucked into descendants' albums, in whispered stories around campfires when someone asks, "What's the strangest thing you've ever heard?" 714 people lived there, loved there, worked, dreamed, argued, celebrated. Children learned to read in that brick schoolhouse. Couples married in that white steepled church. Families buried their dead in that cemetery. Then they were erased. Not by time, which takes decades to erase a town. Not by disaster, which leaves evidence. Not by any force we understand. Simply erased. Larkspur Hollow stands as America's greatest vanishing act. A reminder that some mysteries resist every explanation we throw at them. That history has gaps we can't fill no matter how hard we search. That sometimes places and people slip through cracks in reality itself. The town is gone. The people are gone. Even the land where they stood seems to have forgotten them. But the questions remain. And somewhere in Missouri Ozarks, the forest grows thick and silent where families once lived, where children once played, where a woman named Adelaide Cooper once promised a traveling salesman some apple pie. Untouched, silent, empty, as if Larkspur Hollow never existed at all. If this story gave you chills, you need to share it. Subscribe to Forgotten American Towns and Voices for more mysteries from America's hidden history. Because some stories refuse to stay buried, even when the towns themselves disappear. This is Forgotten American Towns and Voices. Until next time, remember, not everything that's forgotten was meant to be found.